Welcome to Cashflow Diary, a podcast where we discuss business, money, real estate, and the sharing economy. As a full-time real estate investor, entrepreneur, and all-around problem solver, I have had the privilege of developing individuals into powerful business owners. And today, the focus turns towards you. Our mission is to help you build your real estate empire by leveraging strategies to grow yourself, your mind, and your wallet. Let's get started. Is Airbnb hosting right for you? With all the headlines that you've seen, some of them positive, some of them not so positive, you're probably wondering, is this something you should actually do? I have 4 tips to share. Before we get into the tips that I want to share with you is to first not think of it as Airbnb hosting. Understand that you are in the short-term rental business. The reason I say this is because when it comes down to it, if you say, hey, I do Airbnb hosting, you are mentally tying your business to the fate of a completely different platform. You don't want to do this. So, for example, there are platforms and marketplaces all over the economy today, and you don't hear people say, I have an Amazon business or I have an eBay business. Now, they might have an online retail business and they probably sell through Amazon and possibly on eBay. The point is that you don't want your business to be at the mercy of any one platform. So yes, Airbnb may become a major traffic source for you, but you do not have an Airbnb business. The 4 tips that I want you to be thinking about as you consider whether or not Airbnb hosting is right for you are the following. Those 4 key ingredients are knowledge, time, money, and credit. With those 4 pieces, you can build nearly any business that you want. So let's break them down one at a time. Knowledge. When it comes to knowledge, the very first question you should ask yourself is, how much do I currently know about the hospitality business? You're saying to yourself, well, Jay, I thought I was doing real estate. Or, yeah, you are. But what we're really doing is it's how we're using the real estate. And we're using the real estate as a short-term rental, which then gets us into the hospitality business. How much do you know about bed linens? I mean, do you know the difference between a comforter and a duvet? Now, some of you understood what I just did there, but the question becomes, what do you already know? Do you actually know anything about bed bugs, about cleaning, about any of these things that are part of a short-term rental business and making sure that that happens? Now, that's not to say you have to know everything about a subject before you even enter it. In fact, I knew very little, if any, of those things. Many of these things you can learn on the way, but most importantly, there are all kinds of information out there for you to take advantage of, to be able to begin to understand what you need to know and surround yourself by like-minded people who can help you know that as well. Okay, the second thing that you need is going to be time. You're like, Jay, I only have 24 hours a day. I got kids, I got my job, I got all these things that are going on. I have no way to be able to make more time for anything. Well, first, let me say that that's part of the problem, right? Somebody somewhere in your business, if you're going to begin a new business of any kind, somebody has to contribute the time. And for now, that person is you. So we have to figure out what we can cut out in order to create somewhere between 2 to 10 hours a week is what I'm looking for. That's kind of what you need to begin this process. And after a while, it may not even take that much, depending on how big you scale. Now, here's the thing. What should you be doing with your time? You should be investing your time in gaining new talents and skills. That's probably the most important thing you can do right now. Unless for some reason you are already a seasoned hotelier, you need to invest your time in gaining new talents and skills. So the question you should be asking yourself as you're considering, is this right for you? Is that something you're going to actually do? You know, are you going to pick up a book and begin to read and understand the business model? You might have to take some time to go to gatherings and community events that are also in your area. You probably need to be at some of those meetups as well as some of those city ordinance meetings. I mean, there's probably a city council planning meeting that could possibly give you some more information. Here's the point. You've got to begin to put yourself in the community of individuals who are already out there, who are already practicing, and you need to go to the calendar, to the newspaper, to the website, and go figure out if this is something that you are willing to deal with and do. We've covered knowledge, we've covered time. Now let's talk about money. One of the questions I get all the time is, Jay, how much money is that going to take for you? But here's the thing I really want to share with you. Knowledge is the new money. What do I mean by that? You've probably heard Robert Kiyosaki say those words. When it comes down to it, you and I, we don't necessarily have a money problem. We might have an idea problem. For example, a long time ago, there was a problem in the marketplace. That problem in the marketplace was simply the fact that people didn't have a way to make note of their ideas. Not that was simple, not that was easy, not that was affordable. Like, how can I write down what I'm thinking? Well, what happened is that there was an enterprising person or persons who said to themselves, you know what, I can solve that problem. And what they did is that they came up with an idea. That idea eventually became what we know today as a writing instrument, or in this case, a simple pen. Now, this pen and pens like it are sold across the globe because the idea was sound and solid. More importantly, it solved a problem for a lot of people. And what ended up happening is that person ended up exchanging their idea for the resource that they needed, period. And that's what you and I have to do. So right now, you may be thinking, man, I want to be able to do some Airbnb hosting, but I don't have a place. I don't have property. I don't have any money to get it started. I don't have these things. Well, the good news is that the other resources you need are already in existence. So you don't have to invent money. You don't have to invent furniture. You don't have to build or invent housing. You don't have to do those things. There is someone out there who has the resources that you need in order for you to build your business. What you need to do is to come up with an idea of how you can become the operator that they're looking for and willing to take that risk on or investment in. So when it comes to money, is it required? Sure, you're going to need some money to get this thing off the ground. However, I will also say this. I've seen people start Airbnb hosting for as little as $500. Now, in that case, what the person was using was a room inside their house. And all they had to do was buy some linens, buy another bed, a different television, etc., and just kind of set that up. And that was a very, very inexpensive way for them to get started. And clearly, they were able to earn their $500 back in a very, very short period of time. Money is required, but it's how you're thinking about money that's keeping you out of the game. Now let's talk about credit. When it comes to credit, that can be also a very big stumbling block for a number of people. And the real question around credit is do you want to own or lease the real estate? Own or lease the real estate. Now, if you go down the lease route, you have many options and credit isn't that big of an issue. What I mean by this is that very simply, often myself and many of our students, we've been able to use various forms of entities to be able to not need or concern ourselves with personal credit. So just let that sit for now and understand that credit doesn't have to be your stumbling. What is important, though, is that over time that you begin to build business credit for sure, because building business credit will eventually help you as a short-term operator be able to work with larger linen companies, be able to work with larger apartment complexes, be able to work with larger organizations and entities to make sure that your business always has the funding, supplies, resources, vendors, etc. that it will need. Now we're down to the most important question and the number one thing you need to ask and answer to make sure that you don't end up in another dead-end job. Quite simply, you need to ask yourself, do you want to? Do you actually want to do this? Here's why I say this, is that oftentimes what we do when we ask ourselves, should I or shouldn't I get into something? If we can answer how to do all of the things, then we move forward. And until we know how all of the bases and check boxes are going to be ticked off, then we typically just don't move forward. That's what happens. Until we know how that happens, it just won't. That's not the question we should be asking, because there are so many unknowns when you go into business? Do you want to deal with the fact that there will be unknown? Do you want to deal with the uncertainty of revenue? Some months are going to be great. Some months are not going to be as great, but all of them in general should be good. The question is do you want to deal with it? Do you want to deal with all of the negative stuff as much as you want the positive stuff? Does that outweigh it? If you feel like, hey, at the end of the day, it would be great if I could be able to earn the same income I'm earning today, but have half the hours, is that something you want? Here's one of the things that I've learned. When we, you, me, when we want something, we will put up with the stuff that we don't necessarily like so that we can have the benefits that are out there as well. The question is, do you want it?
All right, everyone. I'm Jay Massey, and I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, head over to CashFlowDiary.com to sign up for our email list. Check out all of the links and resources in the show notes. Thank you again. Until next time.